In a world increasingly shaped by technology, the HumanUp Imperative explores the significance of human connection with each other, with the communities we serve, and perhaps most importantly, with ourselves. Join Rex Wallace and his guests as they discuss the ever-important role of authentic, meaningful connection in healthcare. It's time to Human Up.
Hey everyone, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to the very first episode of the HumanUp Imperative. So imagine fireworks going off, imagine confetti falling. It's a new podcast where we're going to be exploring what it really means to lead with humanity in a system and in an environment, in an industry where we all too often overlook humanity. And really excited about episode number 1. If you will bear with me and see I'm actually I have a little bit I want to say here, and I want to introduce our guest. I don't want to miss anything, so I am going to read something. I won't read anything for the rest of the episode, but bear with me for a second because I don't want to miss anything here. If you see me focused on away from you. But thank you for tuning in. So in these episodes, we're going to dive deep into the power of human connection with each other, with our communities, and even with ourselves. I'm a big believer in engagement. Our consulting firm focuses on quality improvement and engagement across organizations, and I believe strongly that engagement across stakeholders is where success happens. So I'm your host, Rex Wallace. I couldn't be more excited to launch episode 1 today, and to do it with a guest who, in their role, exemplifies what HumanUp is all about. I've gotten to observe and work with this leader for a few years now. I've seen many people lead well across a lot of clients, a lot of health plans, a lot of different types of organizations, but I haven't seen anyone lead any better than this person. So really excited that he's on today. He oversees some of the most complex programs in healthcare, like Medicare Star Ratings, which is obviously a passion of mine. But what sets him apart isn't just how he drives results, it's how he shows up for his team. I've gotten to witness this over the years, and how he engages, asks hard questions, but always with the aim of determining what they need to achieve even more, those other teams. And he elevates the people around him. As a result, he's been a very important part of a very successful organization and a STARS program. So I'm thrilled to human up today with Todd Ray. Todd, thanks so much for joining me and for being our first guest.
Thanks, Rex. I appreciate it. I thought for a minute you were introducing somebody else, not me. So I hope I live up to your expectations.
Yeah, I have zero doubt. So and one thing that will probably come out too is Todd's sense of humor, which I think I definitely try to weave that into some of my conversations too in my work, and it makes it a little more pleasant. So Todd, maybe start out telling us a little bit more about you. So just imagine nobody knows you. We have 2 or 3 listeners probably today, right on episode number 1. So tell them about Todd Ray.
Sure. Thanks, Rex. So I've been in healthcare for entirely too long. I lost all my hair as a result of that, similar to Rex likely. And I lead government programs, so Medicare, Medicaid, for a fairly large health plan. The things that are probably important to know is, one, my background is in computer programming. And that was what I was originally going to college for. And I got ready to graduate, and they said, if you only take 12 more hours in finance, you can have a double major. So I double majored with the intent of never using the finance component to begin with. The irony in all of this is, of course, I use both, but I use a lot of my finance acumen more than I've never written a lick of code. But the important thing I think about that is that systematic thinking, logical programming help greatly when you're thinking about organizational problems and how to come up with solutions. The last couple of things I'd say about me, other than I'm a father of 2 kids that are in college, and I've been married for 25 years, and I'm excited to be on the program. And I appreciate you asking me, Rex.
Yeah, when I first started thinking about this podcast, and I mentioned, I'm a big believer in engagement with all stakeholders. I think it's where a lot of organizations fail. I think it's one of the biggest gaps. And what do you do when you have a lot of ideas and a lot of passion around something? You launch a podcast, right? So yeah, but started making a list of, hey, who would we want to talk about, or to talk to about these various components of connecting with others, connecting with your community, connecting with yourself, and quickly came up with a list of, I think I have 18 guests that I want to approach, right? And you were number one. I mean, from the moment I thought about and started listing out people, I thought, because I want to talk about organizational engagement first, right? There are all these other aspects: physical health, mental health, how do you engage with your community, health equity, all of these different aspects of the HumanUp imperative. But organizational engagement is probably where I'm most passionate. And I've worked with you for a few years, and mainly in executive steering committees is where we kind of interact. And I've always been impressed with how you show up, right? How you and I mentioned it in the beginning, but how you show respect, how people respond to you, how you, at the same time, you get results. You lead a high performing organization. You ask hard questions, but you do it in a way that is never disrespectful or demeaning. At least not in the conversations that I see.
I definitely try not to. Yes.
So, yeah, and maybe, and also I see you being not in the weeds, but you know what's going on with the pain point measures, right? With the key programs. And that's my first question for you is, can you talk about the balance between when you're an executive, between being in the weeds just enough so that you know what's going on, but not in the weeds so much that people feel like you're micromanaging them?
Right. So, I'm probably one of those executives that people hate running into on occasion, because I can easily be strategic and I can easily be tactical. And at first, people don't like that, I think, but they understand that because I know some of these details, and certainly not to the extent that the team knows them, it helps me understand what they're trying to accomplish, what they need to do to get their jobs done. And, my role, I have always thought of as a coach. My job is to get the team to execute the plays that we need to accomplish the outcome, winning the game, especially in stars. And as a result of that, I've found that being able to, continuing with this metaphor, being somewhat in the weeds helps you design the plays better. And people know that you used to do that, if you will, right? Like you used to play forward in basketball or whatever it may be. And so you do know what you're talking about. And I also find too that it's one of those things where it's hard to ask people from a leadership perspective to do things if you're not willing to do them as well. And, we've had countless debates, Rex, about what's the definition of this measure and I'm probably one of the very few people that enjoy having that and understanding that from the standpoint that I may not be the only person that doesn't understand something. So I view my role as also an educator and trying to help the team understand every important nuance that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's a balance, and you write it really well. So you are in the weeds. You do know what's going on. If you I guess so, if you were sort of giving advice or lessons learned to someone who was maybe just stepping into a role like yours, let's say, let's pretend like Dr. Oz is going back to TV. You have been nominated to lead CMS in the future, right? So, and someone else is sliding into your position, right? So, what do you tell them to focus on? What are the keys to success that you would kind of pass on to them?
So, a couple of things. One, make sure you understand what the objective is, where you're trying to go. So we'll call it 4 stars, 4.5 stars, 5 stars. 2, make sure that you can help the team understand what the goal is and translate it into something that means something. So a classic example would be better benefits for our members, which ostensibly removes not only some economic barriers, but also makes them more healthy over time, right? That's the goal of healthcare. Understanding those, being able to translate it into actionable steps is really, really key. The next thing is your team likely knows these things. You need to understand them as well. So have fun reading CMS memos that I'm going to be writing for people in your scenario. And I think outside of that, though, what's really important is so unfortunately, I'm old enough to remember Ronald Reagan as a president. And this gets attributed to him. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's called the Reagan Doctrine, and it's trust but verify. And just occasionally you need to say, I understand exactly what you're saying. I believe you. Let me go check that and make sure that that actually is the case. And it's if you do it in the right way, people don't feel like you're doubting them. People feel like you're engaged enough to want to get to the bottom of things and understand things. And sometimes I have found by simply saying that and going and looking at something, maybe we don't understand everything that we thought we did. And that can be very, very helpful as well. By the way, I love your scenario. Me leaving CMS is probably the worst thing that could ever happen to CMS.
It's seen some bad days. I don't know. I think it might not be its worst day. So what about so something you said makes me kind of want to dig into accountability, right?
Mm-hmm.
So stars, and just using stars as an example, it's a matrix program,
Mm-hmm.
right, where the people doing the work, the people kind of driving the performance, for the most part, do not report to the person who kind of leads the stars or the quality program. So it's all dotted lines. It's all
Takes a
about
village. Yep.
influence and influence and strategy and execution. And in a word that gets tossed around a lot is accountability. I typically say, when there's a perceived lack of accountability, sometimes it's just a lack of understanding. We're not on the same page. We're not aligned on goals, like you mentioned earlier. But I'm curious, if someone came up to you and said, "Hey, this person's not being accountable," what would your coaching be?
It's probably something as simple as asking, do you know what the objective is? Do you know why we're trying to do this? Is there an issue that you're encountering that is preventing us from accomplishing something? If it is, what is it? Maybe I can help. I do think, Rex, one of the important things about accountability is aligning incentives. And I think that one of the things that we do in my company is all the executives down are held accountable for STARS measures. Now they look to my STARS leader, they look to my P&L leader, they look to me to make sure that those things are operating correctly. But if you align everybody around the same goals and create similar incentivizations, I think that helps a great deal. And I think sometimes organizations don't understand the rationale behind making sure that those incentives are aligned correctly. So I kind of answered your question in two different ways. So hopefully that was helpful.
It is. And it's funny, when I was even writing the introduction to this episode, I was going to say, in one of my drafts, I had something like, when I talk about this industry that kind of overlooks humanity, right? Too often, I was going to say this industry that has perverse incentives too, right? Because we do, and not just within organizations, but across quality programs and across the whole industry. But no, it's a great point, and I totally agree with you. Those aligned incentives. I have some clients who subscribe to the Drexler Civic model. It's a team performance model. It's kind of like the forming, norming, storming,
Yeah.
right? But it's different. It's in the sense that it's making sure the team is oriented first and knows what their goal is, and then you build trust, and then you kind of work your way into this execution curve. But too many teams start trying to execute immediately before they've built trust, before they've got aligned on those goals. And that's, in my opinion, where a lot of failure happens, right? It's hard to execute when you don't know what is your goal, or you don't trust the person that you're doing this with, and you've got different priorities. So no, I think those are great points.
One other thing too, just to throw out there as an additional thought, is really making sure that people understand that you ask questions to help other people achieve objectives. And I think sometimes within organizational goals that there's a little bit of Rex knows everything, so everybody should go to Rex. And I don't believe that there's any time where one person has all of the answers. I mean, we would love it if that was the case, right? Mm-hmm. But that's also where, from a team perspective, being able to rely, being able to trust on one another, being able to ask questions, being able to help guide and steer, I think is really important. And it's another component to your point about a high-performing team.
Yeah, I think being curious and asking questions. Now that I think about it, I think that is something I see from you that helps. You're not telling people in those executive steering committees, you're not telling people what to do or what's wrong. But you're helping them think through what they should be doing just by asking questions. I remember in grad school, like probably my favorite professor ever, that's what he did, right? He never gave us the answer to anything. He asked us a few questions and helped us get there. And there aren't a lot of people, I don't feel like, who can do that really well. And that's a good skill to build, just being curious and asking questions. Plus, you come off less adversarial, less condescending or anything like that, right? If you're just simply asking questions.
And I always tell people, too, that I reserve the right to ask the stupidest question ever.
Yeah.
But the reason that it's important is the reason that I'm asking is because I don't know the answer. Right. And if I don't know the answer, the only way that I'm going to know the answer is if I ask the question. And so, to your point, there's also within the team, I think everybody knows that it's a judgment-free zone. It's how can we do this better? How can we execute better? How can we achieve our goals better? And you do that partially through the Socratic method of just simply asking questions and challenging one another a little bit, not confrontationally, but saying, well, you said we cannot do this. Let's think about the why. And let's think about, is there a way around that to where we actually could execute on something? Mm-hmm. So there's in my opinion, it's not so much debate as it is looking for new ideas and looking for new solutions and being able to pick amongst those and be willing to also try something. There are a lot of things we've tried, Rex, that have just not worked. Right. But if I'm going to get one diamond by sifting through 10 pounds of coal, I'll sift through 10 pounds of coal to get that one diamond.
Right. And there's a big difference between asking a lot of questions in an interrogation way or I don't believe you way, right, versus the way you're describing it is more of a discovery session, right? Let's just exploration. Yeah, those are great points. What would your advice be to people who are on the other end of that? So not the person coming in to be the executive, but the people that report to the executive, or just report to it, or just anybody that's got a boss, right? Like what would be any guidance for them on sort of how to take that?
So if I don't answer your question, keep asking questions. Okay. But I think something that's important is having a safety space to say, I don't understand this. And look, I'll be the first to tell you, my entire career, I have told executive vice presidents, senior vice presidents, CEOs, like, I didn't get that. Can you back up, right? Yeah. And what I find is that people are usually very willing to pull back a little bit and help understand, because it doesn't do anything if I leave a meeting not understanding what we just talked about, right? And so creating that safe space with your boss, I think is very important. And you also do that by establishing trust with one another. I think trust within organizations is an undersold commodity. I think you have to be able, you spend more time with people at work, well, at least you used to, than you did with people at home, right? And so being able to trust them is important. But I do believe that the other thing that's really important is if you've got an idea, sell it. Work on a pitch. A lot of folks don't have a lot of time. And there's the elevator pitch concept, and we'll just run with that for a second. So if you've got a great idea and you think that, and it doesn't matter where you are in an organization, going to the right person and saying, here's my thought, and being able to describe it succinctly, I can tell you a lot of people have had their career enhanced by just taking that amount of initiative and, of course, having a good idea, but also being able to pitch it really well.
Yeah. I didn't ask the question very well, but you answered it perfectly. So, and you helped me kind of frame it differently. But yeah, it's more about and where I was going is exactly where you took it. Like, how do you manage up, right? Like, how do you, like, when I think about, again, STARS program as an example, right? A matrix program where the ability to communicate to your boss or to the executive steering committee or just up in the organization, up to leadership, and get them engaged, and like what you said is perfect. Building trust, communicating, letting them know that you don't know everything, or you missed something, or I didn't maybe exactly what you're looking for, but asking them to steer you at the same time. But yeah, that was helpful. Okay, let me just ask you a few questions here.
Sure.
What just as a leader, what is one belief you swear by?
Yeah, I'm going to quote Douglas Adams in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Don't panic. A lot of problems, no matter how daunting they are, panic does not help. It's sort of like swimming. If you suddenly find yourself drowning, panicking will not help. I think it's really important to set kind of you want to be known as the steady hand on the tiller. You don't want to get too excited. You don't want to get underexcited. You want to get overexcited. You kind of want to maintain the same demeanor. And I think that from a belief standpoint, believing that no matter how bad a problem is, that we'll figure out, we might not be able to solve the whole problem, but we'll figure out how to manage it or manage around it or whatever it might be, I think is important. And that goes up there with one other belief that I have, which is don't be afraid to give bad news. If you're afraid to give bad news, you have a different problem altogether.
Yeah.
And it never goes well when someone tries to manage bad news. I always tell my folks that, you can come to me with any problem, no matter what it is. My only ask is that you've thought about how to solve it. Even if it's a terrible idea, you've at least spent the time to solve it. So don't panic, and believe that you will figure out a way around these issues.
Mm-hmm. It's timely. I was actually listening to an audiobook this morning, and one of the points in the book was about being calm. And when you are, if you can, which is basically not overreacting, right? Like kind of what you're saying, I think.
Right.
But it talked about, the more calm you are, the more influence you have.
That's right.
Right. The more people the better people will respond to you, react to you. So yeah, just taking a breath and believing that nothing's permanent. You're going to get through this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the whole bad news. Yeah, I mean, in STARS, right? It's a surprise sometimes, right? I mean, we try hard to have good predictions, projected cut points, right? To have our finger on everything, but you don't always know what the industry is going to do, or you might get some surprise at the end, and you always want to be managing expectations appropriately. And yeah, I tell clients all the time, like, don't promise anything, right? Because anything can happen.
Can happen. That's right.
So that's so important. Yeah. What so you mentioned Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which has actually been on my list forever, and because I see it referenced all the time, and I've never read it. So
You should read it. You should read it.
I will add that to the queue. Is there another book you'd say that you think everyone should read, though?
Yeah, there is. So there's a book that was written, I think, in about 2004 or something like that, called Endurance, and it was by Alfred Lansing, and it is a it refers to Sir Ernest Shackleton's journey to Antarctica and the disastrous experience that was, and how he ultimately was able to save his entire crew. And the book is just full of really good lessons, but outside of the don't panic, because I could use the same thing.
Yeah,
it's no matter how bad things are, if you work the problem and you break it down, if you take a big problem and you break it down into smaller components, you're gonna make progress. And you'll see the progress. And progress begets more progress because it gives you hope. And so being stranded in Antarctica in 1850, whatever it was, I've forgotten the exact date, and being able to rescue his entire crew is an amazing accomplishment if you think about that. So no matter how bad things get, I always kind of think about that. Like, well, I'm not in Antarctica freezing to death, and I'm not 2,000 miles away from home, so I can probably figure this out.
It could be worse, right?
That's right.
It could be worse. Yeah. How do you stay calm? Are you naturally calm, or do you?
No.
I mean, are you a meditator or anything like you know? Do you get quiet time in the morning or?
So here's what I've learned.
If it's illegal, you don't have to say it.
No. Fortunately, it's nothing like that. I will tell you that it's one. I am naturally excitable. You can probably tell that just in how I gesticulate. But two, there's a different mode as a leader that you have to be able to switch to, and that is, you are the coach, you are the boss. People look to you, and if you can portray an outward calm, no matter what's going on internally inside your own head, to your point, people respond better, they perform better, and you give them comfort. That's what I refer to as that steady hand on the tiller. You give them comfort that things are going to be okay. And it's just years and years of experience, maybe some stars experience, like missing cut points and not getting them. But I find
it's not getting any easier.
No, it's not getting easier. But I find that if you're intentional about it, again, your team reacts really well. So more tranquil on the outside, complete turmoil on the inside. Just don't let people know, right?
Just keep it in.
That's right.
Yeah. What about, let's see, you mentioned, kind of going through some hard times. Is there a failure or an event like that happened that's been most helpful for you?
I actually reflect on this one a lot. It's not a business failure. It's what I call a personal failure, and it's something that I had to learn earlier in my career. I graduated with my MBA, was on an upward trajectory at the company I was working at. And there was a meeting, and I was basically selling an idea, and I thought I nailed it. I mean, I rocked it, right? Mm-hmm. And so a little while later, my boss comes to me and he says, "Yeah, they said no." I'm like, "What?" Again, excitable at that point. Yeah. What? Like, how could they? Like, what part of this didn't they understand? And he said, "Todd," he said, "one of the things that you have to be able to understand is that perception is reality." And I said, "Well, what do you mean by that?" And he said, "You came across as really arrogant." And I'm like, "I'm not arrogant. I'm just confident." And he said, "And the difference between arrogance and perception, or arrogance and confidence, is perception." Mm-hmm. And so that has always stuck with me from the standpoint of there's, all kinds of people know all kinds of things. And Lord knows there's plenty of people smarter than I am. But by the same token, don't appear overly confident, because it turns a lot of people off. You just need to find that right balance of confidence that doesn't cross the line. And it's something I've worked on my entire career. I mean, fortunately, it was given to me at an early enough time in my life that I could kind of attenuate my approach. But that was and I guess I had never really internalized that thought that the difference between confidence and arrogance is what the person perceives. And I thought that was just great advice from my boss at the time.
What a great lesson learned. But kudos to you for having the self-awareness to realize it was a lesson learned and not just
be mad and
somebody saying something that wasn't true, right?
That's right.
That's right. Which is what a lot of people would probably do. A lot of the things that even that I said earlier, like as far as we talked about managing expectations and never over promising. I mean, I learned that by not doing it, right?
That's right.
Like by failing at it. And the first time, I think I was 2 years into a Stars leadership role at a health plan, and we were 4 stars and we fell to 3.5, a complete surprise. Didn't expect it. And, I'd already, told everyone, we look good for 4 because we thought we did. And I think our CEO had already told the board, we're 4.
Yeah.
And had to go back and say, actually we're not. And, it was the worst time of my career, right? And the hardest year of my career. And I tell everybody, I felt like for the next 12 months, I walked into every meeting wearing a t-shirt with a red 3.5, like the scarlet number. Like I feel like when people saw me, they saw, oh, there's the guy that lost $60 million, right? And but that experience taught me so much. It's the only reason I'm a consultant now. It's the only reason, like if not for that failure, I don't think I would ever be where I'm at today. Right. So, but it's all about self-awareness and having, and actually being whatever, humble or whatever enough to realize I was wrong. Right.
I think to your point, how you react to adversity is a big component of your character. And for people that are self-aware, it is. I like your 3.5 scarlet letter reference, but it is in Stars, especially. It is something that it's tangible, it's immediate, and you feel like you let the company down. Exactly. And to your point, that's why I think you have to be very, very careful. There's too much ambiguity. There's too much uncertainty. Everything is moving. Every company's moving at a different pace.
Right.
There's almost no such thing as being able to say, we guarantee we're going to be at X until it comes out from CMS. That's the only time. And even then, I think every now and then I feel like they could change it, but I won't go down that road.
They have before.
I know, right?
It's rare, but they can.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
At least between the preview periods, right? Before,
right.
After they tell you what it is, but before they tell everybody else what it is. Yeah. Yeah. Any other events or failures that kind of made you the leader you are today?
I'm going to answer your question a little bit indirectly, if you don't mind. I just like everybody, there's the failures of my career. I'm going to tell you one of the ones that is hardest, and it happens to all of us, and that is having to terminate a group of people.
Yeah.
It's usually not because the group of people didn't do what they were supposed to do. Right. It's usually because business circumstances change. And I find that I think if you're an empathetic leader, I think it is one of the toughest things that you have to do. You have to do what's right for the organization. There's no doubt about that. But they're also human beings, and they didn't cause this problem. And I think that is something that, like in the Stars game, that if you go from 4 to 3.5, there's going to be challenges, and sometimes those challenges include laying off people. And I like the reason that I bring this up is I just like everybody else, there are all kinds of things that happen in and outside of organizations, and you have to deal with things. And I think learning from changes in business environment and being able to at least think about, okay, so 18, 24 months down the road, if I'm hiring for this position, is it likely that I won't need that position? And if the answer to that is yes, don't hire that position. Right. Like, so I think that indirectly answers your question, but that is one of the things that keeps me, I'm very, very cautious about adding staff in times of uncertainty, because I don't want to have to lay off somebody after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In today, it feels like that's, the financial pressure that organizations like yours are facing is, it feels like it's as bad as it's ever been, right? Or worse. So, we're seeing clients, have to, exit the Medicare Advantage market, exit different markets, or at a minimum, virtually everyone is exiting counties or where they just can't afford to be if they're, because it's all about sustaining, right? It's not even about growth right now for most health plans. I don't feel like it's just about how do we keep from going under. And sometimes you can't, so we can't control the circumstances always, right? We can only control kind of our thoughts and our actions and what we do on our side. We say in stars all the time, there are some things beyond our control. There's nothing beyond your influence, but your influence
That's right.
can only get you so far.
Yep.
Right. It's not a guaranteed success mechanism, right? It never will be. So too many unknowns, like you said earlier, with stars, and stars is just the example we're using. But
I think right now, to your point, it's the most uncertainty I've ever seen in healthcare.
Yeah.
All kidding aside, there are a lot of insurers that are not making money. There's a lot of hospital systems that aren't making money. Right. So it begs the question, who's making money? And the only thing I've been able to come up with is it's drug manufacturers.
Right.
They're the only part of the industry not crying, right?
I don't think I have a big pharma person on my guest list yet, so I might not. But yeah. But I hear you. Yeah, for sure. Anything that we haven't touched on that you would want to say out loud today?
Yeah, I'll try to tailor this to stars. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Mm-hmm. It's a game of inches and incremental improvement. It takes focus and attention on everything. It takes you're in a matrix environment, to your point, and you have to be able to influence people and lead change. And you have to do that by getting everybody on board with the objective. And, I know earlier in my career, I refer to myself as a stars evangelist, and a Medicare evangelist for that matter, because there's some people, that just flat don't understand what Medicare is. And then there's some people that don't understand what stars is. And, I think, especially earlier when we first started on this journey with my company, I think it was this should be easy to do. And it was eye-opening to see how hard it is. But by the same token, we're fortunate in that we've been very successful, knock on wood. Yeah. And I attribute that to being able to hire a good team, align people around goals, get people to rally when we're falling short on a measure, and making sure that people understand at the end of the day, there's a member that is in that either numerator or denominator, and the services that they need or the preventive screenings that they need are really, really, really important. Mm-hmm. And so trying to wrap all of that around an ethos of we're doing the right thing. I think that's incredibly important from a stars perspective. And, I just encourage your listeners to try to embrace something similar to that. The whole organization has to buy into it, and you have to be really good at telling them why they need to buy into it.
it's so important. I mean, organizational engagement is the secret sauce, or one of the secret sauces to success, right? For STARS and for so many other programs as well. And kudos to you guys for having what feels like a great culture. I know you didn't build it, personally, but you're a key part of it. So, I don't see a lot of turnover coming out of your teams, which is such a big positive indicator of that ethos and good culture and good communication and people feeling respected, I think, right? Yeah, so it's good to see. Everyone's not in that boat, but you guys are a good example of that.
Thank you, appreciate that.
So end with this. So how would you finish the sentence? For me, one of the most important ways to human up is to blank.
Make a difference.
Make a difference. I love it.
Now, I can try to expand on that, but I think if you want me to finish the sentence, that's what I would say.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, make a difference. And clearly, in my eyes and in our interactions, I see that you definitely are. So, Todd, thanks so much. That's going to be it for episode 1. I really appreciate you taking time, being on, and really enjoyed the conversation. And no better guest for episode 1 than Todd Ray. So, thanks everyone for human upping with us. Is it human upping or humaning up? But thanks for being with us, and we'll talk next time. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Rex.
Thanks,
See
Todd.